Hello, everyone. I'm Jenny Michael, Office Administrator at the Sierra Fund. We'd like to welcome all of you to the webinar for the Sierra Fund's Transformative Moment. We're so pleased you could join us. And now it is my distinct honor and pleasure to introduce the new Sierra Fund Chief Executive Officer, Brian Wallace, former chair of the Washoe Tribe of Nevada and California, a visionary Indigenous leader with a wealth of experience and success advancing tribal-led initiatives.
Brian Wallace, Upule, Auburn, California, and Truckee, the Martis Valley. It's my distinct pleasure and honor to thank all of you to this webinar, and I really appreciate you taking the time out of your busy days to join us on this, real auspicious and transformative moment that we've been looking forward to for a long time. But in the beginning, I certainly want to recognize all of the folks that are on this webinar, and particularly those who are have newborn parents or have welcoming new life into their families and into their communities. We certainly want to honor and celebrate that for you. And then I also want to acknowledge those in our family that are on this call that are taking care of loved ones, or also maybe helping transition through the passing of those that were so important in their lives. And we just want to take a moment to remind ourselves how important both of these times and these celebrations and recognitions are to all of us. In addition, I just want to thank all of you who are residing on various homelands of Indigenous peoples and just recognizing the love and care that we all have for these places, and then walk in honor and respect for the ancestors and the tracks that we're all following, as in our own way, in our own best ways. But I guess what we'll do right now is go ahead and begin to get into this to the presentation. So I think at this point, go ahead and start. I first want to take the time to introduce our new governing body that's heading this new Indigenous-led Sierra Fund. With us to join us on this call to help with this presentation is our new board chair, Dr. Lisa Gray-Shield, and also our new board vice chairman, Joseph Miller. And so if you just want to go ahead and say hi, and then we'll go ahead and get into the program.
Hungamaheji, Washu Demotmo Ket Letle, Melty, Ida Kashanadi Digumdia, Dr. Lisa Gray-Shield. I'm a member of the Washoe Tribe, and and a new member of the Sierra Fund Board of Directors. It's such an honor to be here. My ancestry has been up in the Sierra Nevada mountains since time immemorial, and connection to this land is really critical for all of us at this time. So it's really great. I'm really grateful to be a part of this this transformation and movement towards beautiful world for all of us. So thank you, Brian. Thank you for your leadership, and I'm looking forward to what we're going to share on this talk today.
Thank you, Lisa.
Good morning, everybody. Again, thank you, everybody, for taking the time out of your day to be here. You are all wonderful. My name's Joseph Miller. I'm a member of the Big Pine Tribe of the Owens Valley. I was born and raised in Payahunadu, the Owens Valley. I've lived here all my life. It's really been a very great honor to interact and be a part of this with the Sierra Fund staff and the new board as we transition into something, that we believe is truly going to bring good things to, tribal communities. Thank you.
Thank you, Joseph. Myself, I'm Nisenan, Danku Nisenan from the Bear River, Nevada City, Auburn area. On my father's side, and on my mother's side, I'm Washoe and Nisenan as well, from the Martis Valley area. So, but we're joining you from the beautiful homelands of the Nisenan people here in Nevada City. So I just wanted to recognize and honor where we're coming from and where we're at today. This transformation started a few years back when I was able to accept an invitation to serve on the board of the Sierra Fund and help work in developing direction and a vision for the Sierra Fund's tribal partnership program. And so it was really an opportunity that I've been thinking of for a long, long time. And that what really attracted me to the Sierra Fund was that it was like a legacy nonprofit here in the Sierra Nevada that had set the bar and the gold standard for safeguarding Sierra Nevada natural resources, and particularly in dealing with hydraulic mine restoration and remediation, and then piloting nature-based, place-based solutions for forest and watershed restoration. So saying that what a brave organization in the direction that they were heading was easy for me to say yes. Once we were able to begin to kind of work and develop the tribal partnership program, the board supported some really innovative or kind of insightful initiatives. And one was to create ethical spaces for thriving Indigenous collaboration within the CO bioregion, and then create a venue and a space for the exchange for these Indigenous communities and nations that thrived in the Sierra bioregion, a place for them to exchange Indigenous technologies of survival and care and workshop them in the summit environment. The idea of the summit was centering Indigenous youth, more than human, and women's voices. And it's just been the catalyst for our movement for the last 3 years. And actually, I just want to toss in something I heard the other day from an aligned organization I have so much respect for, and that's the Women's Environmental Alliance. And they're saying is that when women thrive, the earth thrives. And I think it really does center something that we really are focusing on, and the voices that we want to have projected in our work in the Sierra Nevada. The venue is basically about sharing our histories and then getting you busy and set about the work of respectful collaboration. When we closed the summit on 2023, the 22 tribal groups and communities that were represented at the summit developed accords of friendship and cooperation that outlined our guidelines for how we were going to work together over the time and focus on giving voice to the bioregion and speaking on behalf of our more than human relatives, and also again centering youth, women, and nature voices, and really be an advocate for the rights of nature of all the magnificent and critical cultural ecologies that we're a part of and related to. Our movement has a mission, and this has been developed, and it comes out of the summit dialogue that cultivates our work and our discussion, and basically is to invest and elevate in Indigenous place-based wisdom and leadership and guardianship to achieve reparative justice and resilience in Sierra Nevada for their cultural ecologies and communities for future generations, and give voice and action and leadership to this basic mission and movement. As we look to the future, it's clear that the traditional approaches to conservation alone are just need some support. So, and what we're advocating for is that we believe that we must listen to the voices of those who have been here the longest, and it's the Indigenous communities whose knowledge in the land is unparalleled. And we want to use this as a movement to represent a fundamental shift in how we approach conservation in the Sierra bioregion by empowering Indigenous leadership, preserving cultural ecologies, and recognizing the rights of nature as we chart this new course for the bioregion's future.
And it really was an exceptional and special experience sitting with the new board members as we came together in strategic planning sessions, to work on the foundation that the staff had built, for this mission and vision. And if we're going to run through some of the vision elements that we came out of that meeting with here, if you want to bring them up. We envision a future where all people respect Indigenous culture ecologies of the Sierra Nevada. We envision Indigenous voices, leadership, and knowledge are centered in the movement to restore resiliency to our environment and communities. We envision a future where rights of nature are honored. Everyone understands their inherent caretaking and responsibility to be a guardian. And we envision a future where Indigenous peoples restore and protect the land through practices that have sustained the region for generations. Lisa,
Hey Lisa, you're still muted, so I'm gonna unmute you.
Thank you, Joseph. I just want to reiterate that that first meeting, visioning meeting, was really powerful for me as well. It's like, we were really able to put all of those things that we've been thinking about collectively for so long together, and we see that we're at this critical juncture where, the dream, the possibility of really making a difference in the way that we think about our lands here, our homelands is really powerful. So this is such a beautiful conversation, but we envision a future where Indigenous peoples, cultures, lands, and languages thrive. We envision a future where all of our relations, humans and more than humans, are given equal voice. We envision a future where women's voices as cultural keepers are centered. And we envision a future where all people learn from the land, intergenerational transmission of knowledge and cultural wisdom. So, as a psychologist, I came from the world of psychology and stepped into, understanding what it really means to be well. And the land and the people are truly one. It's both scientific and Indigenous ways of knowing and traditional ecological knowledge, and all of those things are coming together. And I'm, really grateful to be a part of this.
Thank you, Lisa and Joseph. As we've talked about, the dogmas of our quiet past are inadequate to the storming present. So I just wanted to take the time in a moment before we get into this slide to really recognize the former board of the Sierra Fund at a time where we, if we believe that history is more about place than time, we're at a point where we're kind of at the confluence of history and time. And so the former board of the Sierra Fund had the vision and the courage to actually look to the future and understand where we are, and that the Sierra Fund, it's a time for unpacking and then repacking and refitting for a new journey and a new future as we kind of are in this intersection at this confluence of opportunities. So it took a lot of courage for the board to vote in a new governing body and then push all their chips in behind Indigenous leadership and a vision for the Sierra bioregion. So I really want to take the time to honor and respect, throw some respect towards the former governing body of the Sierra Fund and all the talent and the people that were a part of its magnificent journey and success. They really need to be respected and noted and honored. And we certainly want to make sure that we carry on the legacy that they had set into motion, decades ago. So I just wanted to point that out. What we have here is a map of the Sierra Nevada bioregion, and in a way, it's kind of an outline. And if you kind of squint your eyes a little bit, of a former indigenous nature state that thrived for millennia. And our whole point here is, other than being called out on our nice little map, which we're working on right now, is a representation of the beautiful diversity of the ecologies and cultures represented in this beautiful bioregion, which is actually a hotspot for the entire planet and continues to be so. The purpose of the map is to redefine our legibility in terms that we see it, in terms of cultural and ecological and historical relationships that we have with these people, and basically to represent a diverse and vibrant Indigenous nations and communities that thrive in the bioregion. Naming practices of Indigenous people in these communities that were represented on that map constitute cultural sovereignty and verify language variation and family and social and political affiliations. And it really does void the argument that the Sierra bioregion and all of the associated ecologies and lands were vacant Indigenous landscapes. Our work's to recenter subjugated ontologies and reshaping Indigenous ways of knowing. And our approach to Indigenous knowledge organization through this work is to kind of regain our footing as pessimistic authors of our own future, and not just muted sources of knowledge to be mined. So the work that we're going to be engaged in and was represented in those maps is that we're working to remap landscapes and histories, reclassifying our own peoples and our ecologies in our own way, and reimagining and mapping cultures and landscapes that thrive and grow. It's no accident that the biodiversity of the planet that exists today is, and 80% of it is being managed and stewarded by indigenous peoples around the planet. And it's a message that we want to also share and amplify here in the Sierra bioregion by showing that there's many cultures and so much indigenous talent in our communities that I have been able to work with and have responded to this call over the last years that have voiced, their visions and dreams in our summit dialogue.
So we're centering the voices of the land and restoring tribal rights. I think this one was mine, but I know that we are all in agreement, but by centering the voices of the land, we are talking about the rights of nature. And so California's history is rich with beauty and cultural diversity, but it's also marked by the brutalization of its first peoples. The unratified treaties negotiated with our ancestors in the mid-19th century were meant to secure our land and protect our ways of life. Only 18% of those tribes in California were even negotiated with at the time. And this might seem a little confusing right here in the slide, but it's really important to point out that during that treaty era, that actually did give tribes some leverage to advocate for themselves in this very fast changing world. But it's important to remember that those treaties were offered to a very small number of tribes worldwide. And in California, that was 18%. And so it's important to understand that indigenous people are all through California, all through Nevada. We didn't have those political lines. So California is a state often celebrated for its progressivism and natural beauty, and has also been a site of profound historical amnesia. These injustices and traumas continue to echo throughout indigenous communities of the Sierras to this day. We all understand that our healing is tied to our ability to reestablish ourselves as indigenous people in this modern world, to participate and be a part of what our ancestors established as this beautiful place, a beautiful landscape that is cared for and stewarded. Reparative justice, restorative justice, regenerated justice, traditional ecological knowledge, and all of those terminologies are coming forward, for us to understand that we do need to regenerate the earth because it's about interconnection and interdependence. Joseph, is this one yours? So should I continue?
Yeah, just one more slide, Lisa.
Okay, so reparative justice is everyone's cause. We all understand this. Parallel reparative justice will restore the leadership and vitality of the Sierra indigenous communities and course correct the current ecological crisis and challenges facing our communities. This is a movement that can bring balance and provide a platform for indigenous-led conservation efforts that also address a legacy of genocide and cultural erasure. I think it's important to point out that we are all indigenous and understand that someplace in the world we are all connected as deeply as the people of the lands that we're concerned about right now. So that's why it's important for indigenous people, our people, Washoe in the Tahoe Basin, to be in the Tahoe Basin, reinstating our cultural practices and views of how we look at the land as a part of who we are. So restorative and reparative justice. Mm-hmm.
I want to take the time to acknowledge the work of the Intertribal Coalition of the Bears Ears National Monument. Mm-hmm. And all the progress they have made in this, and the leadership and the modeling of good work that they have shown us. So I just want to honestly admit that this next graphic is kind of a borrowing from a graphic that I seen they were using to describe how they view through their lens the cultural ecologies and landscapes of their homeland. And so we borrowed this and approached it in the same way to describe how we see the Sierra bioregion and its connection to the as the headwaters to the rivers and watersheds of both sides of the Sierra Nevada and the desert landscapes, as well as the Bay and Delta estuaries. Indigenous societies of the Sierra bioregion were organized to reflect adaptability to changing ecologies. And so that's just why we're still here. And they were able to produce prolific and predictable food systems for themselves and non-humans, relatives who we call our own friends and relations. And you got to understand that Indigenous people, as Lisa had mentioned, were just clearly genetically resilient and thriving in adaptive cultures and genealogies that are connected to these landscapes and these cultural ecologies. And despite us coming from different places within the bioregion, we're driven by a similar set of principles: a reverence for the sacredness of life, that non-humans are equal and sacred relatives as humans, and that the belief that human groups are divinely assigned, or Indigenous people particularly divinely assigned to care for their respective homelands. And so when we look at the bioregion, we would look at it in a way where the sky, the night sky, open spaces should be protected in order to preserve ancestral connections. That viewsheds are lands that have the right to exist and free from disruption to the natural place. And tribes consider the Sierra to be a spiritual place, and thus value and need to peace and quiet. Sacred sites to tribal nations and peoples consider sacred ancestral places integral to our maintaining balance in natural systems and vital for cultural and spiritual practices. The plants and forests, for generations, Native people use these plants for medicines, plants, and other purposes. The materials in certain places embody spiritual power of those places. Water is respected as a living entity and is essential to life, which must be protected in all forms for the benefit of all living creatures. Geologies and landforms can be genealogically and topographically prominent features and landscapes are culturally important keystone parts of our landscapes and cultures. These are the areas that we, over our planning process, Joseph and Lisa and our governing board has been engaged in over the last 90 days, and actually in the basis of the tribal partnership program over the last few years, are the areas of our Indigenous-led program focus: climate adaptation, emergency services, and community safety, cultural ecologies initiatives, land and water and guardianship governance, workforce and social investment catalysts, and reconciliation and equity, as Lisa has talked about. This climate adaptation and emergency service and community safety is the heart of our retooling of the Sierra Fund. Our vision is to create a platform and movement of conservation that's built on prepared and resilient and well-planned communities. The essence of our retooling actually is built on a 2-year proof of concept that the tribes that are part of the partnership and leading the new retooling of our own governing body and leading the retooling of the Sierra Fund have been working with First Nations in British Columbia to integrate expertise in emergency service, community safety, and capacity building into our retooled organizational structure. And basically, a member of our board, Mr. Brendan Mercer, is an expert and been recognized for decision support and gained international recognition for his work supporting Indigenous-led emergency management initiatives. We're going to focus on emergency preparedness, mitigation, response, and recovery to preparation for climate change initiatives to ensure that future Indigenous emergency management is fundamentally different than the current emergency management paradigms that are available today. And we really want to investigate the best decision support frameworks to support Indigenous-led emergency management in the communities here in the CO bioregion and help support various environmental, economic, and social opportunities that are created by Indigenous environmental movement management initiatives. So this is going to be the core of our game and development. And again, it's to enhance emergency services and infrastructure and reclaim data to support this effort. And I'll come back to that. Build capacity in the area of disaster preparedness, fire management, and community health, and support tribal communities' recovery from disasters and facing changes of climate challenges that are facing us now. Why I want to highlight the matter of reclaiming Indigenous data is it's essential for us to become custodians and curate our own information. And there's kind of a concept that I think many of you have heard in our movements, that it's Indigenous land and water back, but it's really about Indigenous data back right now, and reclaiming Indigenous data for our own purposes and being able to secure its access.
It's all very exciting stuff. People at the spearhead or the forefront of, these tools and bringing it to the people that need it most. Another one of the programmatic areas that we, would like to explore is within cultural ecologies, preserving a worldview that sees the earth as a living entity, not just for the benefits of humans, but for the benefits of all life, right? The rights of nature and everything that exists within the ecosystem or the planet. Promoting the value and wisdom of traditional knowledge, protecting our data sovereignty, as Brian said, and reclaiming Indigenous data that has been held from us for 100, 150 or 200 years or more, supporting self-determination within tribes, and revitalizing language diversity. I think with revitalization of the nature diversity, of the language diversity, it's also important, that we get these Indigenous place names, locked in, and we use them, and, we start getting other people to use them. My personal favorite, because it's where I've spent a lot of my time in my life, advancing tribal food sovereignty. I mean, I think it's important for us to, have a sustainable route to, keeping ourselves connected to the land and connected to the food that exists on that land. And easily one of the most important things is, bolstering, wrapping up, or supporting an intergenerational movement from youth to elders. This is something that we always put a lot of emphasis on in tribes. Speak with your elders, listen to your elders, learn from your elders. I mean, we need to create more avenues and vehicles, for that to happen, so we don't lose who we are.
Land and water guardianship. Um, Applying our deep understanding of natural world to heal the land and ensure its vitality for future generations by returning Indigenous lands and waters to Indigenous hands, such as creation of Indigenous protected and conserved areas. Support the creation of expansion of tribal resource management, tribal stewardship, and guardian programs that are successful and thriving in the bioregion already, that are part of our summit dialogue. That'll be highlighted in our upcoming summit here in October. And advocate for the rights of nature and give voice and champion to legal recognition and protection of our more than human relatives and ecologies that are really, part of what and who we are and who we want to be. The movement around Indigenous protected and conserved areas is something that we've been exploring the promise of for the last 2 years now. And basically, it's piloting frameworks that are being used by Indigenous peoples around the planet, really in leading Indigenous-led and conserved protection efforts and movements. But Indigenous lands are lands and waters where Indigenous governments or communities have a primary role in protecting and serving ecosystems through Indigenous laws, governance, and knowledge systems. The culture and language are at the heart and soul of the IPCA.
Brian, can I just add something that is just really exciting for me at this time, and why this transition to Indigenous leadership, even in this organization, is just unprecedented and amazing, because we have such an opportunity right now in this time in history, because not only, have we watched the destruction happening over a very short period of time, after thousands of years of stewardship of this land, that our people had this stewardship where we didn't have catastrophic forest fires and all of these things that we're experiencing right now as a result of human impact on climate change. And so, we can see the data, the information is directing us to look at the accelerated pace of climate change that's happened since indigenous hands were removed from those lands. And so the paradigm of indigeneity is what's really important here, is that we can promote this in our communities amongst all people, that we're all coming together. The research, the science, the information that's out there, and the precedences in this Indigenous, protected, and conserved areas, IPCAs, has been set all over the world. And, with the things that are happening today, maybe they're only a handful. The Klamath River dams are coming down. People are beginning to recognize the importance of Indigenous people on the land as probably the most intelligent and most ecological, quickest way back to understanding that that symbiotic relationship with the land is I don't even know how to say this, correctly. I think I had a little something in my mind, but to understand that Indigenous people on the land engaged in traditional tribal activities is climate justice, because our relationship with the land is such that we understand that we're a part of it in that relationship. So I just think it's really important for us to remember, if nothing else, Indigenous, protected, and conserved areas, IPCAs, is something that's bringing the knowledge together, the information from the UN, the Paris agreements, all of these things that are happening all over the world. And the United States is, we're hanging in there, but it is time to make that transformation really quickly, as fast as the accelerated pace of the human impact on climate change. That's as fast as we need to work. And so I think that, if anything else, I hope we all remember and can promote these Indigenous, protected, and conserved areas as a framework that will allow us to step in and really apply these Indigenous practices. So thank you.
At the heart of an IPCA are Indigenous guardians, the people, particularly the youth, our future nation builders. So our concept of Indigenous guardianships, that guardians are the eyes and hands on the ground on Indigenous homelands. It's important to emphasize that they'll have the duty and responsibility to be real guardians to the land itself. Guardians monitor ecological health, maintain cultural sites, protect sensitive areas and species. They promote intergenerational sharing of Indigenous knowledge, helping train the next generation of educators, ministers, and nation builders. This is going to be guided by the direction of our cultural ecologies initiative, which basically is to revitalize, cultural practices and support Indigenous wisdom and knowledge. And so we're going to go about this by organizing workshops and training sessions and cultural exchange programs involving youth and elders. One of the initiatives that we've been asked to do is to create a strategic framework for Indigenous food sovereignty and a seed economy catalyst for the Sierra bioregion, using contemporary practices, ensuring sustainability, empowering Indigenous communities. I want to look in this direction that we've been talking about. Obviously, advocating for the rights of nature to give voice and champion for the legal recognition and protection of the natural world, and ensure that these principles guide every conservation and restoration effort that we get to work on. So to kind of cover a little quickly, our initiatives is, initially is creating a knowledge and technology sharing platform that's user-friendly in design, mobile, accessible. We're going to work with communities on the concepts that Joseph talked about community data sovereignty, and help guide communities through data sharing agreements to upholding data sovereignty, and help them interpret and implement OCAP agreements, which are agreements for communities about ownership, control, and access protection of their Indigenous data. We're looking to kind of create a knowledge repository with a digital library so we can curate our own information, interactive maps with GIS support, Tribal Summit website, which we have going right now. And then again, Indigenous data reclamation to help tribal communities identify funding opportunities based on newly integrated data for identifying future institutional agreements or collaborations or expansion of those for future grants or revenue sharing streams, now bypassing tribal communities that are otherwise being monetized by outsiders, either for or against their community, and then document and record traditional seed and ecological knowledge and oral histories to maintain this heritage. To wrap it up, we'll be doing technology sharing, toolkits and guides, software access, community engagement, and around sustainable land management, education, and outreach. So, Lisa.
So much. And I love that we've shifted from, within our meetings, we're using the term guardian and shifting away from the use of the term steward. I mean, because we are so much more than that. We don't just tend to the land, we protect the land and we love the land. I mean, that makes us more than stewards. And so we're going to talk about the parts of our programmatic elements that we would like to focus on: reconciliation and equity. Reclaiming and decriminalizing our practices and the pathway to reconciliation. Because let's be honest, when we were moved off of our lands, at that time, we were done so in a way that, we were less than the American citizen, and, we didn't have the rights as, the same rights that they did. And this day and age, we need to bring that back up to speed, and we deserve more than that. We need to reclaim our role as the original caretakers of the Sierra Nevada lands and waters. We need to sorry, I don't got a full screen view. We need to raise awareness of California's genocide and injustices that have happened here. We need to advocate for and model action reconciliation that's meaningful, including centering and funding Indigenous reparative justice efforts. We need to advocate for good partnerships, ethical spaces, and best practices for, I don't have the full screen, I'm sorry, for engagement, I'm assuming. And we need to create ethical spaces for vibrant Indigenous collaboration rooted in truth and openness. And that's so important. That's something, just a discussion that we end up falling down that rabbit hole all the time, that these discussions that we have with the agencies that seem to regulate us folks that want to protect the environment more than they regulate the folks that want to destroy it. We need to define the engagement that is taking place with these agencies, create the spaces where they know that they have to bring themselves to a certain level and have a certain understanding and respect for our culture and what it is that we're trying to do to enter those spaces and begin engagement with us.
These partnerships and collaborations that we're looking forward to and piloting right now through our summit dialogue are not only based about protecting land and empowering our communities. It's underscoring a commitment to building resilient Indigenous communities and integrating, as we talked about earlier, emergency services, community safety initiatives, and capacity building into our conservation and protection framework for the Sierra bioregion. And have it and represent a holistic approach to ensure that Indigenous communities are not only ecologically vibrant, but also prepared to face the challenges of a changing world. So we talk about Indigenous water governance and catalyzing Indigenous leadership and cultural, based on cultural revitalization and ecological protection. But on the score of workforce and social investment, this is where a lot of work occurs and support happens in our tribal summit. And there are so many people that are part of the summit that are doing such wonderful work, like Allie Meters Knight and Don Hankins and some of the others that have been voicing their initiatives in our summit dialogue. But our workforce and social investment framework is a catalyst for informed economic transformation to create Indigenous-led and finance social investment systems and programs to create an Indigenous conservation finance framework that'll support the guardianship and IPCA projects and voicing the rights of nature and of the bioregion. We want to work to promote business, nonprofit programs to compensate Indigenous-led efforts for restoring cultural biodiversity, regenerative restoration, conservation, food sovereignty, and reparative justice efforts, as we've talked about before. Provide training and technical assistance for tribal-led entities and project startups to secure public and private funding of tribal programs with this reclaimed Indigenous data that we've been talking about and supporting those efforts. support traditional livelihoods, including traditional and contemporary tribal arts, music, and other forms of Indigenous expression, and support Indigenous-led restoration economies. Our approach: lift and center tribal voices, establish ethical spaces and venues for collaboration rooted in truth and openness is so critical, as Joseph have mentioned. Offer technical assistance and mentorship to young people to take our places and then do more with the opportunities that we're trying to work and give to them. Create tribal accessible knowledge platforms through the efforts of the Sierra Fund, but also make sure that the resources are equitably distributed to the communities where they need it, and then where all of this progress needs to occur. Promote intergenerational guardianship, as Joseph talked about. Center Indigenous tribal leadership and the rights of nature, and give voice to the more than human community that we're related to, places we come from. Support adaptive Indigenous management in every form and in every venue that we participate in. Help non-Native organizations understand best practices and model good partnership and ethical relationships that are rooted in openness and truth. Those are the ones that are going to last the test of time and have the most meaning. Establish bridges of understanding and alignment. The whole purpose of our summit was to share our histories, become closer through fellowship and hard work and sacrifice and success, but get about the business as quickly as possible of respectful collaboration and work. Integrate traditional wisdom with modern technologies and science, Western science particularly. Our whole movement is a bridging of Indigenous wisdom and Western science and citizen science for the betterment of the future of the Sierra bioregion. Our team.
Lisa, I think you're going to share a little bit about Brian.
Oh, yes. Thank you. So many things are running through my mind because I know there's no way we can pack everything into this, presentation on what we are proposing, and all these conversations that we've been having. They're really exciting. But one of the most exciting things for me is to have, the honor of having been asked to be a part of this board, and under the leadership or CEO of Brian Wallace. And, I'm a Washoe tribal member. He was a tribal chairman for our tribe. He's been in tribal leadership for over 20 years, longer than that, as long as I've known Brian. I met him as a tribal leader, and once he, finished his term, then he's continued to move in, into a larger vision, and so while we're promoting Indigenous practices of the original people on these lands, which should absolutely be the focus of our justice agendas, we're also reminding everybody that we all have a responsibility as Indigenous people. And Brian has led so many different projects, assisting, the leadership has promoted a lot of our own people to be involved. And so we together as a community under the leadership of Brian Wallace have been able to get rock climbers off of our sacred rock at Cave Rock. We've been able to have some of those lands returned, have recognition as the original people, as, to executive orders that state that, the ecology of our lake, DAO, requires Indigenous people back here in our stewardship practices and all of those. So that vision that Brian has carried from the time of leadership so many years ago, I don't even know how many years ago, I don't want to say that because I'll give away both our ages, but to this point now where that vision is extending throughout the entire bioregion, I'm excited. I'm working with a small organization. We're just getting on the land, prayer back on the land, and begin to institute some of those plant practices and, really just being on the land and, to be a part of understanding that that's a small part of a larger vision to really take care of the Sierra bioregion. And so, I didn't understand the vastness of Brian's vision way back when he was our tribal chairman. I was a young mama. I'm trying to raise my children on the reservation and deal with all the issues that we deal with as a result of being disconnected from our cultural ways and the things that plague our communities, physical, cognitive, mental, psychological, all kinds of challenges that we have as a result of that disconnect. So bringing ourselves back to that land and advocating for land rights and indigenous ways of knowing is nothing more than a paradigm shift. And so I'm just really grateful, to be a part of this and I had no hesitation when Brian asked me, maybe just in that, am I really qualified, to do this? And, but I understand too, we're all in this together and we all know that. And so, this group of Sierra Fund, regardless of where we come from, we all come from different parts, different walks of life. And I'm just, really confident that, we can step up and have this wider vision. So with that, Brian, it's an honor to serve. And I'm grateful that, your leadership is here. That's why I had no hesitation and complete faith and belief in the vision and our ability to move together. So thank you.
Thank you. Back at you, equally proud of all your achievements and what you brought to our community and the value you continue to share selflessly. It's inspiring to see generation after generation step up to the call and deliver the way you have. And so it is my honor to announce that Dr. Lisa Gray Shield has been elected as the board chair of the new Sierra Fund. And also congratulate Mr. Joseph Miller on the call with us today of being appointed the vice chair of the new Indigenous-led governing body of the Sierra Fund. As Joseph had mentioned, he's a member of the Big Pine Paiute tribe. During our initial governing body, election of officers, the board also had the honor of electing as our board secretary Pamela Kubler from the Colfax-Todd Valley Consolidated Tribes. She serves there as the vice chair, and they also had the honor of and opportunity to appoint as our board treasurer Melissa Tayaba from the Shingle Springs Band of Miwok Indians, who serves as the vice chair there as well, and is very respected in the tribal community of California and our nation. Our additional board member we have is Chris Hohag, who's a Bishop Paiute tribal member. We have also Brendan Mercer, a member of the First Nations and also the director of decision support operations for the First Nations Emergency Service Society in Vancouver. We have board members that have transitioned from the old board, and then Mr. Tim Seward, who's been a legacy board member, but also has been very much involved in the development of the field of Indian law over the last 20 years here in the Western United States in our nation. And he serves on our board, as well as Nils Moe, who's a very well-respected and emerging leader in the areas of climate justice and climate equity, and is actually worldwide, world expected, internationally versed and talented, and just provides such a deep bench to our board. So we're really proud of the makeup of our governing body and the vision and the energy that they've brought to this movement. And it is really my honor then to accept their invitation to serve as the CEO for something that I believed in for a long time. We all love our parts of our homes, but when you get a chance to kind of fight for something and give voice to something that's so much bigger and so more important than what you've had a chance to work on, you can't pass up that opportunity. It's basically, you feel it's kind of why you've been put here. So this is just more than a labor of love, because it's obviously a call to action. The challenges before this bioregion are immense, but so are all the opportunities. And with the right support, we can turn the tide and create a future where the land is protected, where communities are empowered and the rights of nature are upheld. And so this initiative is more than a project, it's a movement, and it just requires the collective effort of all of us, as you see here on the board and the staff that we've been able to organize and the community that's been part of this webinar today. So I'll turn it over to Joan Claber, who is our Chief Operating Officer, and so she can describe the legacy and the history of the Sierra Fund. And I also want to apologize for not recognizing her earlier like I was supposed to.
I'm cool with that. No problem. And I'm going to be very concise because I would really love to give some time for questions. So I guess I wanted to let you all know that the staff, our operating staff is going to be staying here with the new organization. We were invited to stay on and are thrilled because we have a true passion, I believe, for everything you've just heard. It just really hits our hearts as very much carrying on with the very powerful legacy of the Sierra Fund. So many of you know the Sierra Fund, know that there's been some transitions in our past lives. We started as a community foundation and leveraged a lot of resources and helped with coalitions establish the Sierra Conservancy. Then there was this powerhouse of activity that went on, really reforming mining in California and addressing California's toxic legacy of mines and doing a lot of great innovative restoration work. What's happening now, obviously, is we're going to be hiring a whole new programmatic staff to carry on the vision that you just heard about. But Laura Carroll, our development director, she's going to be staying with us, myself, Beth Bordner, our finance and operations director, and then Jenny Michael, our office administrator. So we're all staying on. Rebecca Allen, can you just say howdy?
As soon as I can find that audio button, yes.
Yes, nice.
Good morning, everyone.
Rebecca's going to be joining on as our executive officer of programs. So we're really excited about this moving forward, looking forward to hiring more Indigenous staff, because when we say Indigenous-led and centered, we want our staff to reflect that as well. And I think the most powerful thing here is that we're going to hit the ground running. This new organization, I think, may or may not have happened without the Sierra Fund, but it could very well have. What we're excited about is that we can bring all of our operations, our networks, our conservation partners with so many of you, just bring it forward so that this can just start off in a full powered way, that there doesn't need to be a year, you know what I mean, of organization building, that this can just really get to the business at hand, which is so powerful. So I think I'm going to head now, though, into questions. So what we'd like to do is take any questions from all of you. And anything that doesn't get answered today, we'll definitely want to follow up. If you could write your questions over into the chat, or you can raise your hand using the icon on the bottom of your toolbar that says react. So that little heart that says react, if you hover over that and hit that, you'll see some options. And one of them is raise hand. So if you
Joan,
raise
if I can,
type into the chat.
sorry, before we get, if I could just say, in closing, I just really want to thank everybody for participating in this webinar and giving us your input. We're we're launching our 100-day fundraising campaign to raise $2 million to pull off, and then move forward with these initiatives. And this funding will allow us to launch our program, secure legal protections for conserved areas, and build the capacity for Indigenous communities to lead the way. So it's not just investing in conservation, we're building strong and resilient communities, and where Sierra bioregion thrives under the stewardship who know it best. And it's a place of extraordinary beauty and significance, but that's because of the responsibility and caretaking and guardianship of the Indigenous peoples that have been part of this bioregion for time immemorial and millennia. So we just want to thank you for taking this time and allowing us to share not only the story and vision about who we are, but who we want to be, and then honoring the wisdom of those that came before us, so we can really kind of push this vision into not just a dream, but make it into a living reality. So I just want to thank you for joining our efforts to help lift these nations and our nation to a higher and better place. Our efforts are, go ahead, Jonathan.
No, I just wanted, but I cut you off mid-sentence and you were saying something really powerful.
I would just say, to kind of close out our implementation roadmap, we have some short-term goals and some midterm goals and some long-term goals. But as you've noticed, we've been reorganizing our leadership. We're establishing an advisory council. We're developing our knowledge sharing platform and launching our initial programs and designating initial IPCAs and integrating our finesse technologies support for the first 2 years. In our midterm 3 to 5 years, we'll expand our programs, increase community involvement, advocate for policy changes, secure diverse funding sources, and scale up the guardianship and emergency preparedness programs. And then the longer term goals to just achieve significant conservation outcomes and legal protection for the voicing of our places we love so much.
Great. So there's a couple of questions in our chat, and I'm just going to answer a couple of them very quickly. One is, are we any plans to change our name? Thank you, Jenny Hatch, for that question. And the answer is maybe. So next year, the board and staff will all be working together to think about rebranding. And so they may consider a new name, a little bit of a new brand. But right now, we really are focused on getting the program and the staffing launched. So stay tuned. Somebody also asked if there'd be a write-up on this, and we will be having like a one-pager, and our website also right now is a really great source of information. So maybe Jenny could put our website in the chat. If you haven't visited it yet, we encourage you to check that out and continue to check it out, because as we continue to adapt and evolve, we'll be, putting all of our updates there.
We also have a toolkit that I can share out to the two people in the chat that were interested, if you want to share that in your own newsletters.
Yeah, thank you. So if any of you are interested in sharing this news, put your name in the chat, and Laura will share a toolkit that you could share out on social or email. Jonathan Long has a question. Maybe Brian or Joseph or Lisa, what events or projects do you have planned in the year after the October meeting?
After October, we're actually taking a second half of our proof of concept pilot with our finesse collaboration. We're taking a group of tribal members to British Columbia to do field applications of the technologies, look at the GIS and data applications that they're piloting, and then apply them there, look at some of the executive direction and infrastructure that's going on with finesse, and what we want to begin to borrow and migrate back here to our communities here in the Sierra Nevada. But also, let's see. But we want to begin. Well, obviously, we're going to be hitting it hard on the fundraising, but begin to develop the platform for all of this place to be, all this information to be housed, and then begin to look at how we can create some outlining some of the initial indigenous protected and conserved areas that are kind of already there. Frankly, it's not just a movement. It actually is reality. There is a negotiating right now substantial acres of areas in the Northern Sierra that are being considered as with private partners and tribal governments and government actors to create potentially soon within a year a very large IPCA here in California. Lisa?
Rebecca, did you want to add on about Shingle Springs partnership?
I did. With Shingle Springs, actually, we're going to be helping them launch a water protector program that we think will just resonate throughout the whole area. And also work with Colfax Todd's Valley on their what they're calling the Flicker Crew, which is a hand crew dedicated to preservation of cultural and ecological heritage and introducing cultural burning to their homelands of Colfax, as well as Shingle Springs, and also partnering with Tahoe National Forest. So exciting things coming up, and then integrating a lot of the GIS information that we're working on with Finesse. It's going to be a busy fall.
And fundraising is huge. So just to let you know, with this, evolution, we are needing to do a lot of fundraising for the vision. So there'll hopefully be some funds, general support funds to help the organization do the rebranding, the strategic planning for next year, really figure out how to build these, different visions and programs up. And then in the meantime, you've just heard some of these partnerships were already underway. So somebody asked if there are project ideas or partnership ideas, who would they reach out to? And I would encourage you to send those ideas to info@thesierrafund.org, and then we'll share them out with Brian and the board of directors. So info@sierrafund.org, and we'll share those out with Brian and the board. Somebody asked if we're working with non-federally recognized tribes, specifically on allotment and public domain landowners. Brian, or?
Yes, we are. We're integrated with project principals. Beth Rose Middleton and Nina Fontana with UC Davis are actually piloting California Alati climate adaptation project right now. So if you can put your information in the chat, we can connect you with that so you can help collaborate with that. That's ongoing as we speak.
If you all type your email addresses, I think we already have them, correct? We have all your email addresses, so email us if you don't want to be on our email news list, but we will send out kind of all of our breaking news information, and we'll send out an overview as well. So you're on the list, but feel free to holler if you want to get taken off the list. How's that? Yeah, cool. I think is anybody see that Jonathan Long, what events? No, I think we got to everybody's questions. Is there anybody here whose question wasn't answered? You could feel free to unmute and just ask it yourself right now. Nope. All right, Brian, any closing thoughts?
Just thank you so much for your time, and we certainly hope that this webinar finds all of you in good health and spirits, and we wish that for your family members and your community as well. We just so much look forward to getting this work done. If we're going to hit the ground hard on the 100-day fundraising, but right off the bat, we're looking to build Indigenous capacity in the Sierra Fund and in the community. So that's our primary objective right now for the next 100 days.
Yep. And at
Thank you for all
USA,
your support.
we're Indigenous-led and centered, but we're not Indigenous only. So every one of you who was on here, let us know if you're not thinking this, but we're thinking you're part of this movement. So just know we're all in this now together.
I just want to add to, just to leave everybody with the thought that we are all Indigenous somewhere in the world. And so, we're all connected in that way. And so I'm really excited that we are inciting a paradigm shift, if you will, in the way that we look at the earth and even what that data is telling us about our impact on it. So thank you. And yeah, good to thank you all for joining and being with us.
Joseph, anything you like to
add? Just the same as Lisa. I mean, thank you guys all for giving your time for us, and I hope you are all excited and as interested in this as we are and on board. If we have any of our outgoing or ex officio board members on the call, I mean, you guys your hearts are in a place that is beautiful, and the bravery that it took to hand over this thing, and give it a new future. It was, it took a lot. Thank you guys.
Do you want to give a shout out to the Paiudanu Summit?
Sure, if I can, really quick. So, having known all these folks for about a year and attending the summit that they had put on last year, and being involved with knowing what's coming up in the Indigenous Guardianship Summit that's happening, the Tribal and Summit on Indigenous Guardianship, I was really inspired to do the same in my own region and bring, information, tools, opportunities, and especially focusing on subjects like creating spaces for ethical engagement and defining what that looks like. And it like I said, it inspired me to do something similar in my home area. And so we are kicking back the date right now, but we are trying to plan the Paiahunadu Tribal Summit, and it will be focusing on protecting, stewarding, and celebrating the land. Hopefully, if there's some interest in that, maybe like it is a tribal event, so I mean, anybody who may be interested in receiving information on that, I mean, maybe you can send your email also to Laura, and she can kick those over to me, and I can share that information with you.
Thank you, Joseph. Again, everybody, thank you for your patience and interest in this webinar and following along with us as we kind of walked the best we could through our little pitch deck. But I just want to acknowledge everybody's work on this. It was a lot of effort, particularly our board and staff. And I just want to tell you how proud I am of all of you. So thank you very much.